Hello, this is Virtualis the Chess Noob, learning and having fun with chess. Making a blunder is simply an integral part of beginner intermediate chess. Sometimes the blunders are obvious and I facepalm immediately after making a move. Other times the blunder is rather more obscure and is picked up by neither myself or my opponent during the game. These hidden blunders are only found afterwards during analysis, and these could have been game-changing. The game I played today had one such blunder. Please enjoy! So let's start with a review, chess.com's algorithm. Neither of us played this game super accurately, 74% and about 67%. And we each had some good moves and also our share of mistakes, inaccuracies and blunders. Now, if you look at this chart, I was ahead for most of the game, except you can see here, this red dot is where I make a blunder, but then the opponent blunders right back. And usually that pattern of two blunders side by side means I made a terrible mistake, but the opponent didn't capitalize on that mistake. So what was that mistake? Let's have a look at that in the context of the game. Right, so I played with the white pieces, opponent black, e4, e5, knight c3, the Vienna game. Opponent plays a interesting opening, so c6, so that's automatically bad. So maybe something like the Caracan, I don't know, but they already led with e5. Anyway, that was a sort of an interesting move by the opponent, but not necessarily a good one. I played bishop c4. Now, there was an opportunity here for me to directly strike into the center, as the opponent cannot capture back without allowing me to develop my queen. Here they made h6, which maybe that's a waiting move of some sort. And at this point, I decided not to sort of play sort of the usual approach with the Vienna. So, you know, d3, f4, knight f3. So rather than playing that, I decided, look, I've been given an opportunity. Let's just strike in the center. So d4, and at this point already +2. So opponent is, you know, captures back with queen, doing pretty well, almost +3 now, and we're only on move 5. Opponent now develops a piece, so knight f6. Here I could have pushed the pawn to e5 with an attack on the knight directly, and I think Stockfish thought that that was actually the best move. However, I had a sense that I was ahead regardless, and rather than playing immediately down that aggressive line, since I'm not really familiar with the queen already in the center of the board, I thought that I might actually just develop my pieces, getting ready for long castles. Opponent plays bishop e7, which was a good move for them. Long castles, now bringing the rook and queen into a potential battery along the d file. Opponent plays b5, which is a good move, so forcing me to retreat the bishop. Again, you know, the Stockfish wants to play aggressively. I thought about that, but I wasn't sure whether or not I would sort of tie myself up in knots. However, I have in fact lost a lot of my advantage by playing conservatively there. They play c5, pushing their pawns even further, and I think these pawns are probably overextended now at this point. However, I do need to play carefully, I need to move my queen out of the way, and I play queen e5, which was apparently the best move according to Stockfish. Now another attack, and this is of course one of the challenges with queen in the center of the board. And I played queen g3. Again, this was probably the best move. So do need to sort of move the queen out of the way and trying to avoid a potential, potential attack right away the next turn, forcing the queen to move yet again. So I thought this was potentially a good move. And, you know, potentially the queen and the bishops are all sort of facing in that direction. So, you know, if the king castles to the queen's side, there may be some potential advantage there. They push their pawns even further, and given that I've already committed to castling, these are good moves. So potentially they're really pushing their pawns into the face of my king. Have to move, knight out of the way, potentially sort of with an attack on these two pieces. Interesting. So again, opponent really sort of pushing forward with their pawns. Here, what I saw was that this bishop was guarding this this pawn. So if I captures, then I will be able to capture that pawn. So that's what I saw, and I thought that I was being clever here. And you will see that Stockfish says 0-0-0. You know, I was ahead, and you know, down to 0-0-0. Why was that a blunder? Now, the reason that's a blunder, and I didn't see this in the game because I was thinking attack, potentially sort of another attack on that pawn as well, though of course that is guarded by the knight, is that the opponent now has this move queen to a5, which forks the bishop and also the a2 pawn. So a2 pawn with long castles isn't directly defended by the king unless you move the king to b1. Now, I haven't done that yet in this game. So I would have potentially sort of lost that pawn back, and that is a fairly important pawn given it's guarding my king. So that's the reason why that was a blunder, and I would lose all my advantage straight to equality. I thought that was a clever series of moves because now I thought I was one pawn ahead. Now, lucky for me, the opponent didn't see that either and opted to give an extra defender to that pawn. And again, it's continuing the theme of the pawn storm with a5. And that's a blunder for them because they lost that potential advantageous line. So now I'm basically back to winning again, so over +5. Bring my other knight out, knight f3. They play bishop b7. I push my sort of pawn forward now. Potentially happy to have some trade. So, you know, this attacks. They can't attack because that square's defended 2 times. They move bishop to e7, which is a good move. That would not be a good capture for me, I thought, because it allows the development of their queen. And what I saw instead, bishop d6, blocking sort of the moves of that bishop unless they capture. And if they do capture, my pawn advances now to the 6th rank, which is good. They did capture, allows me to capture back. Stockfish thought that rook was better. I thought it would be easier to play with the pawn in that position. So again, getting very, very close to the final back rank, or to the final rank and for promotion. Queen, okay. Here I decided to centralize my other rook, so rook e1. Opponent long castles, which apparently was a good move. However, they've lost a lot of the defenders on that side to the queen side. So here I was keen to see whether I could liquidate some of their defenders. So bishop b5 with potential attack on that knight. They move the knight out of the way, which was as expected. I decided to move my bishop now to a4. They bring their bishop forward for an attack. I didn't want to damage this pawn structure here, so captures, which was apparently the best move according to Stockfish. They capture back, and now with one less defender, I can now attack with my knight. And I thought that the opponent would pretty much be forced to capture. Apparently, they could have just brought their other rook into the picture, but they opted to capture. And here, again, Stockfish wants me to sort of trade these rooks, but I wanted to actually liquidate. I was a full pawn up, and if I can liquidate most of the pieces, me with having a pawn all the way onto the 6th rank, I thought that it'd be reasonably easy to convert for a win. So queen trade, very good. They bring their other rook now into the picture rather than capture directly. Push my rook again into their face to e7. Basically inviting, forcing really a trade, and that would then allow my pawn to now move to the 7th rank. And pawns on the 7th rank tend to be very, very powerful. So they captured, pawn now on the 7th rank, and that rook is now basically trapped. It can't really move anywhere without sort of risking promotion. So king now forced to, I think, march over here, and potentially that will be what would allow the opponent to finally capture that pawn. So what I need to do is I need to move my king out to start to get rid of some of these other pawns, to maintain the pawn majority. I was pretty sure that pawn was lost, but I could get rid of some of these other pawns, and in the end, I should be able to overwhelm the pawns. And my goal was to get to just king and pawn endgame, and if I have more pawns, I should win. There we go, capture, capture back. They capture, yep, so now the rooks are off the board, so they captured my pawn, I captured the pawn back. Now the opponent is forced to bring the king over to, however, now check, and they now cannot stop that pawn and protect that pawn. There we go, they capture. My king is much closer to their pawns now on the king side, and here they opt to resign. So these pawns are toast, and once that's the case, I should be able to promote one or more of my king side pawns, given they're all supported. So good game with the opponent, GG. One of the patterns I identified on analysis in this game is that you have to take some extra care with the A pawn after queenside castling, as this pawn isn't automatically guarded by the king. This weakness can potentially be exploited by an attack on that pawn, and my opponent missed a potential fork against me which would have equalised the game. Luckily for me, my opponent didn't see this tactic either, so I was able to maintain my advantage. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.